everybody. Happy Tuesday, Blue Demons. Welcome to this edition of Get to Know DePaul. Today I'm joined by Matt Wright from Residential Education. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for those of you that might be new to the stream, Get to Know DePaul is a series that we do that's designed to help you, DePaul students, get to know the different programs, areas, and services available to you here at DePaul. So today we're talking about Res Ed. So here at DePaul, we have a number of different residence halls and students who live on campus. And Matt is one of the hall directors who's here to talk a little bit about the office and what they provide. So Matt, to kick us off here, how about you tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, why you came to DePaul, and how long you've been here?
Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Matt Wright. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia originally. However, I just finished up grad school at LSU, and I've worked at DePaul for about 5 months. And the reason I came here is I just fell in love during my interview process. I fell in love with the team. I was able to feel like I could just be me, and I feel that's really important when we're working with students. And so I knew I had to come to DePaul.
That's great. Yeah, and I know you've had a fast and furious start from this. You started during the pandemic, which is probably relatable, especially to a lot of our first year students here.
Yeah, it definitely throws things off, especially when you're used to being in person, not only going through an interview process for a job during a quarantine and pandemic, but more so just reaching out to students and really trying to make those connections. It's definitely pushed all the residence directors to try harder and change our normal things that we're used to.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Res Ed. We know that we've got these, brick and mortar buildings here, and we know that there's RAs and RDs and all these acronyms. So just give us a little bit of an overview about who Res Ed is and what y'all do.
Yeah, so Res Ed functions in each of the residence halls on campus. We work hand in hand with housing as housing sets up those room assignments, any facility concerns, they handle those. And that's when they pass the ball off to Res Ed. And that's where the residence directors, the RDs, supervise the RAs. And we utilize those RAs to interact with students on their floor and build those strong communities. The RDs also handle behavior concerns through our conduct process with students. We oversee and facilitate large programs throughout the residence halls so we can build up that community I mentioned. And we also serve in an on-call role. So that way, after hours, if there's any crisis, we're able to respond and make sure students are getting the assistance they need.
That's great. Well, and I think that's one of the things that's really important too, especially right now, is RAs are building that community. And we know a lot of the things that we're doing obviously are taking place in a virtual environment, but RAs are still building that. They're still building that community. They're still helping students to really find their place. So, Matt, tell us a little bit, what did fall look like in the residence halls? How many students did we have on campus? What were they doing? How did students stay engaged?
Yes. So we had a few hundred students, just between 200 and 300 students on campus. And really, the main way we were trying to get students involved was through hall programs that were run over a virtual setting, normally through Zoom. And a lot of these programs were hosted by the RAs, so that way they were able to tailor their experience and that program to their residents and what was going on their floor. We want to make sure we're providing that social interaction, even though in-person events are limited. And so we've been able to figure out what type of online programs work and how we're going to emulate those going into this winter quarter.
That's great. What was your favorite fall quarter program that the RAs did?
Yes, we actually did a program that worked with vision boards and working on planning out what this year was going to look like, specifically that fall quarter, really trying to figure out what students wanted to do and how they would implement that. And then we nicely segued that into Among Us, which is a very common computer game that is a big hit for students.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you said that a lot of the programs that you've been doing have been via Zoom. Do you anticipate that that's going to be what winter quarter looks like as well, or do you think that you're going to change up the avenue and how you deliver programs?
Yeah, so we plan on, especially starting off this winter quarter, using Zoom heavily as a lot of our students are in quarantine. All of our students on campus are in quarantine right now. And so we're actually trying to have additional programs during this time, especially during this first and second week of classes as students are getting reacclimated to being on campus and really making sure that they have enough ways to be engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really important because we know that engagement leads to sense of community. And one of the things that we've been talking about in our Get to Know DePaul series this year, in particular being in the winter quarter, like we know that sense of loneliness is a concern that we all have. Like, we don't want people to feel alone. We don't want them to feel isolated. And particularly for our students who are living in the residence halls, you've got this great avenue, and you've got a lot of people working towards making sure you don't feel alone, right? Like, because I think a lot of people might assume that, you're in a residence hall, you're automatically in a community. And in a lot of ways you are, but you're not necessarily going and sitting in the common spaces, or going to, eat in the dining halls in the same manner right now. But there are still a lot of different avenues. So, Matt, I'm curious if there have been any, themes or trends that you saw emerge from students in this past fall quarter, and how you might be using those to better inform what you guys are going to be doing in winter.
Yeah, so one of the main themes that we saw is with a lot of the students that I spoke to, they've actually really enjoyed being on campus. And so sometimes we often hear that students aren't liking being away and that they feel alone. But through these programs we're having, we're really trying to sort of change that. And we're trying to find different ways to get students involved. And so one of those ways is through Residence Hall Council, which is RHC. And we have senator positions that are available for students. And we specifically have several positions in McCabe and Oz still available. But really, with working with those students, they've been sharing that they really just enjoy getting involved. And so we found a lot of students were sort of hesitant in joining those online programs. You're in class all day for Zoom. And so we understand there's that Zoom fatigue. And then at the end of the day, we're trying to throw another thing on top of students. However, we really encourage students to sort of take that plunge and really branch out, because it gives that way for students to really get involved. And the students that I've worked with, they've had a lot more fun as they're able to build that community more and get to know their other residents.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really important, because people, I think some of our students are wondering, like, or sometimes they wonder, like, what's the point of doing some of these online activities? And, like, the thing that I say is, like, we're not going to be in a pandemic forever.
Right.
I mean, hopefully not, right? Like, these these relationships you're building in the virtual world are going to turn into in-person offerings. And, like, even in the residence halls, it's a great example. Like, there are places that, if you do live in the residence halls, that you can go and eat in the student center in a socially distant manner.
Right.
So go to a program, go to an event online, and then, set up a time to go, get 312, stop at the grill, and you can sit in the second floor performance area in a socially distant manner and eat and talk, right? Like, you're not living entirely in isolation. Like, use these virtual experiences to make new connections, meet new people, and then head on over into these physical spaces. And in a safe way, you can, interact with other people. So, you're not entirely, living in isolation and just by yourself all the time. There are ways that you can still connect. And I think, what the RAs are doing, what Res Ed is doing, especially in these virtual programs, has been really great, and can be that catalyst for a lot of our students.
And those spaces, that's what seeing students still in the student center really, because the tables are spaced out lovely. So that way students are still able to interact. And also, especially a lot of these students are freshmen. You're meeting the people that you're going to know for a lot of your college career. And so meeting in these programs, that's how I met my friends, was through floor programs. And so those are still a thing. Once this pandemic is over, we will hopefully be able to get back to some sense of normalcy and be able to interact with students. And so you're going to be able to very easily segue and have a group of friends that are surrounding you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and springtime's coming up. So
Mhm.
it's especially a great opportunity when you are living on campus. Like, you can go outside, right? Like, go outside, be 6, 10, 12 feet apart, and, like, hang out on the quad, hang out in all of these different spaces. I know a lot of our residential students were doing that this past fall. Yeah, so Matt, you talked a little bit about RHC Residence Hall Council. Are there other opportunities for involvement that students can engage with throughout your office?
There is. So we actually will be launching the RA selection process later this winter quarter. And so we push that students are really keeping an eye out. We will definitely be emailing that out to students. We found that's a good sort of method to reach out to students. But we're always looking for RAs. And like I said, those senator positions, that's always a huge thing, a way of getting involved.
That's great. Yeah, well, and I think the other thing that's great about the RA positions in particular, it's a paid on-campus job, right?
Right.
Like, and that's, I know that a lot of students are looking for that right now, especially during the pandemic. We know that there have been some new financial tolls and pressures on people, but I think that's great to point out to people. So as we, oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say, so the RA position also provides a great chance, especially with a resume builder. So you're able to talk about these conflict resolution skills, budgeting skills, and different ways that you can build an entire resume around your RA role. And so I feel like it's a great position that we don't highlight enough.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, as we head a little bit further here into winter quarter, are there any marquee experiences or things that you really want to make sure our residential students have on their calendar and have on their docket for something to look forward to?
Yeah, so we're hoping to have more popular basketball viewing parties as our men's and women's basketball teams are starting to play. We're wanting to still have that sense of being with a crowd, watching the game. And so we're going to be live streaming these games. On the 9th, there's a men's basketball game at 1. And on the 10th, there's a women's basketball game at 3. And we will actually be having prizes for those fans that come dressed with the most spirit. And so sort of having those spirit contests. So, we're that blue, come out and support these demons as we are trying to beat these other teams.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I have you been watching the games at all this year? They've been really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, the men's game against Providence was just like,
Yes.
I mean, it went in for if you didn't watch it, or like for our viewers, if you didn't watch it, it went into double overtime, and like, I mean, our women are just they're a top 25 team in the country, so they're always fun to watch. And Coach Bruno and I mean the players and the team there is just doing a spectacular job. I know they've got some really big games coming up. They had a real I thought they played really well against UConn.
Mhm.
They didn't pull out the victory on that one, but they've taken every other Big East game so far this year. But yeah, definitely check out the basketball schedule and cheer on the Blue Demons remotely. They're really fun games to check or catch if you can. So Matt, as we and head towards the tail end of our interview here, well, first I'd remind our viewers, if anybody has any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and you can ask them live during today's session. But if people have follow-up questions, how can they connect with ResEd?
Yes. So if you are having more of a business question, you can reach out to resid@depaul.edu. We are very responsive with our emails. And if you're having any housing issues, you can reach out to housing@depaul.edu. It's a quick way to get a response. But if you're looking for ways to get involved, ways to sort of follow us on social media, you can hit up our main ResEd social media at DePaul ResEd. We post a lot of programs, flyers, ways to get involved. And then if you're a Monroe resident specifically, which is where I oversee, you can head over to MUB Community DPU on Instagram. And we are working on a weekly newsletter series where I'm making videos talking about what's going on, hopefully similarly mirroring what you're doing with these Get to Know DePaul experiences. And residents, if you're needing anything at all, reach out to your RAs. They are there. They're working right now to help you, whether it's through a group chat message, text, or email. They'll be able to get you connected to the best resource.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Matt. As we, round out our time together here, do you have any advice for students as they head into winter quarter?
Yeah. Coming as a college student as well, I understand how hard it is to make that plunge into a social situation, whether it's a program or a Zoom call. And so, really, as we have these offerings, I really encourage students to join those programs. We found that students feel really nervous at first, but when we had that follow up afterwards, students enjoyed getting together, having that social interaction with people they maybe didn't know before. And so, it's a great way to build that community and to make connections with those you know. So, join that ResEd program, hit that involvement fair, just find a way to get involved.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think that's the hardest part of all of this too, right? Is like you got to show up to the first one, and like it's going to be awkward, right? It's always
Right.
awkward whether we were going to do it in person or we were going to do it online. The first one is always the hardest, but once you're there it becomes a lot easier and you start to
Right.
make those connections and people look for you. So I think that's great advice. Well, Matt, thanks again for joining us
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
For our viewers, we've got a couple other things on the docket scheduled throughout the week if you aren't aware of them. So this is Get to Know DePaul as part of Winter Welcome Week. So Winter Welcome Week is continuing for the remainder of this week, and we've got a few different things lined up for you as well. So today we've got Take Home Tuesday. We're going to be giving away DePaul Bluffs. So if you don't have one yet, between 1 and 5 o'clock, you can request one. So if you go over to the OSI social media, which is DPU involvement. You'll be able to catch a picture of those and see the request link so that you can get yours requested. Sorry, that's my roommate Penny in the background. If you can hear a little dog barking, I think it's mail time in the James household. And then tonight we've got mystery bingo from 7 to 9 p.m. So the prizes are the mystery component of it. So join in so that you can see, or you can again join in DePaul with DePaul community and win some prizes. Then tomorrow we've got our Winter Wonderland hunt taking place on the DePaul Involvement Instagram account. And then our DePaul Activities Board is hosting trivia night tomorrow night with an office theme. Then on Thursday, we're going to be giving away spirit shirts. So you can see the design and get the link again on the DePaul social or the OSI social media account. But then Thursday, really one of our marquee experiences is taking place in our winter involvement fair. So we've got 104 different student organizations that are signed up to talk with students about getting involved and about what they're doing and how they're staying engaged. So be sure to check that out. To join into the involvement fair, all you have to do is go to dhub.depal.edu, and you'll be able to join from the homepage. You can search different organizations and talk in real time with all of those different organization members. Then Thursday night, we've got DePaul After Dark is doing a speed friending event, which you can join in at 8 p.m. And then on Friday, we've got our second day of the Winter Involvement Fair. So if you weren't free that Thursday, you can also join in on Friday. And then each day this week, we're also doing 2 sessions. They're recurring sessions happening daily. The first is Wake Up with OSI. So it happens on Facebook at 10 o'clock, and then around 10:15 or 10:30, Tanisha and Sarah head over to Instagram to talk about what's going on throughout Winter Welcome Week. And then, as you know, if you're watching this, we've also got our Get to Know DePaul series happening daily at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. So our next session today is at 4 p.m. with OMS, the Office of Multicultural Student Success. And if you haven't yet, I would highly encourage you to scan that QR code that's pictured on this screen, because one person who checks into each event is going to be winning a DePaul Spirit Pack. So you'll get a DePaul beach towel and a DePaul tumbler, both of which are pictured here. So be sure to scan that QR code and check it out. But until next time, we hope you stay safe, Blue Demons, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.